My whole life, I've had some sort of anxiety. I've always worried about something, been fearful of something, coping with those types of feelings and those waves of emotions. Because really, it was just kind of a come and go stuff in here that you have to control and kind of simmer down. And it took me a while to get to that point, but I feel like I had to go through that then so that it could get me to where I am now. Everyone knows that the fashion industry is a pretty competitive field, and a lot of people think that everyone in this industry is just to themselves and trying to push the other down, but really it's not like that.
Hello there, Carolina. Thank you so much for accepting our invite to We Are Mentally United podcast and being here with me today. I'm so excited for myself to get to know you a little better and for our audience to hear a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be a part of this and to be able to have this chat.
Yeah, definitely. And just briefly, for folks who might not know you, could you introduce yourself or tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Carolina Riscanevo. I'm from Miami. I am half Colombian, half American. I'm 22 years old, and I'm currently studying fashion design abroad in Milan, Italy. So a lot of cool things happening right now. But yes, very into fashion. I love creating things, using my hands to create something new, something that inspires me that, I get it from the flow in my mind. Um, and yeah, I love to knit, I love to crochet. I honestly sew in my free time, so I'm always sewing and creating something. So yeah, and I love listening to music. I love collecting vinyls. I love collecting CDs. I have a couple of autographs there as well mixed in. But yeah.
That's absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to bond a little bit on some of those topics because I'm really into like records and stuff as well. But yeah, just getting into it a little bit. Like, when did you kind of realize your passion for fashion, and kind of know that's like what you wanted to do? And did you have support from your family, from your friend groups, or was that something, because it's something different. You know, a lot of people don't usually pursue their career in fashion. And for you, you have left the country at such a young age and, went across the sea to pursue your passion.
Yeah, so I feel like I've had a passion for this ever since I was very little. I'd have Barbie dolls like any girl, but for me it was like I would see an outfit and I would be like, oh, but I would like to add this to it or that to it. And at the time, obviously, I didn't have the resources to even come about that, but I always was so moved by, the design of every single Barbie and of their dresses, of their outfits. So that really intrigued me. And also, I grew up on a lot of red carpet shows. I would honestly turn on to watch the red carpet shows, watch a couple performances, but I was more into the red carpets, and I love to see the flow of all of the artists' gowns and what everyone brought to these shows. And just I was like, I would like to do it. I would like to wear it. But um then I always thought it was music because I've always been a big fan of music. You'll always find me listening to music, discovering new artists, something that I love talking about and love, searching. So I did pursue music for some point. And I realized halfway through my senior year of high school that I didn't see myself having a career in music. Um, and I said, well, what can I do from here? And I've always been very into like crafty things, creating things with my hands. And, so I was like, what if I give, making clothes a shot? Because I have some experience. I took like one fashion design class in middle school, and I remember loving it. And I even had my teacher love one of the dresses that we had to make out of recycled newspaper. And she was like, every time she sees it, she'd be like, wow, you've got something. It's so unique. And remembering that, I'm like, I think I should try that. And I told my parents, and they were like, wow, you should do it. That's really cool. And I'm like, okay, we'll go for it. And, the rest is history, I guess, as they say. But, coming here to Milan, it's really because of my parents. They worked so hard to get me to accomplish my dreams. And I mean, I always tell everybody, I think they were more excited than I was when, I was going through this whole process, and them seeing how I'm doing here with all of my classes and all the different opportunities I've been able to be a part of. They're always like the biggest fans and like always celebrating. And so it's very heartwarming. And yes, I'm here to pursue my dreams, but I also do it for them.
That is so lovely to hear that. I especially love that, you know, you get so much support from your family because I feel like, especially with creative careers, most of Gen X generation is not so confident in them. So you don't really know what you're gonna get. So I feel like that is so heartwarming for a lot of people. To just see how supportive your parents are in your journey, and that's just really encouraging. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your transition from, going to high school in Miami to now pursuing higher education in Milan. And like, when did that transition happen for you? Was it like once you graduated and you were 18, or was it a little bit later? Tell us a little bit about that.
So, in high school, I mean, always involved in the arts in some way. I was always performing choir pieces, we had some really cool opportunities performing at Carnegie Hall in New York City, performing at Epcot, Disney World. So, just really cool things that we got to do. And then it was kind of a bit of a shift going from high school being in music and then college being in fashion, but it was kind of in the same scene because music was always there. While we worked, there was music. In the fashion shows, there was always music. There's people behind the scenes producing their own soundtracks to put in these shows. So I feel like it wasn't too rough, but definitely a change in my mind because I feel like I was more passionate about, sewing and creating than I was when I was in choir, even though I loved, being a part of that, singing the music that we got the opportunity to sing. Um, and so I think that the transition from Miami to Milan was this big thing. But uh, I don't know, the fashion and the study part of it and the work part of it has always felt the same, but always kind of growing exponentially because I feel like now I feel like I'm doing more than I was before, which is really good. And I'm learning a lot more here.
Yeah, definitely. You're in the fashion central of the world.
Yeah.
And that's just so exciting. Like, you should be so proud of yourself to pursue that. And I also started my journey as an international student at some point. So I feel
Yeah.
that. And I have a very close friend who lives in Italy, who highlights me on the lifestyle every now and then. And it's kind of challenging. Like, did you find yourself having to grow up a little bit faster than most people? And like, did you like feel the difficulties, but where you're like, okay, I'm doing this for what I love? Like, do you have those moments?
Well, yes, the culture definitely is different. It is not as fast paced as it is in the States. So my anxiety kind of like eases a little bit. But yes, I've definitely, having to adapt to a culture, but also having to adult at the same time was a big change for me and something that it took me a while to kind of handle. And still, I'm in that process of handling it, but I feel like I'm better now than I was before. And yeah, it's definitely something very big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I feel like even as you live there longer or where like live in your destination place longer, it doesn't necessarily get easier. It's just you know how to deal with some things, and then you have new things that you have to deal with. So you know,
Yeah.
I always love to connect with other people who are kind of going through the same experience. And then, like you said, Italy's a little slower pace, like closed restaurants for lunch, that kind of stuff. Uh, but that also
Yeah.
means for the students, it takes longer to do things. It's a little bit more frustrating. So yeah, that's we'll be getting a little bit more into that. But
Yeah.
you also brought it up. So what was it like to kind of deal with anxiety at a young age, as a young adult, and even as an older teenager? And what was kind of like that point for you to realize that okay, this is what I'm going through. I feel different, and maybe I need a little bit of support. So what did that process look like for you?
At the beginning, it was pretty rough, even though I feel like my whole life I've had some sort of anxiety. I've always worried about something, been fearful of something. And at the start of my diagnosis and onward, it was really weird because I'm like, well, why am I the only one going through this? I mean, how is it that people don't go through this as well? Like, it just felt so normal to me that I'm like, I felt kind of like the outlier, like I feel like I stood out a bit, but um, what really helped me was getting the support from my friends. They would be like, "Well, I don't know what you're going through, but if you need anything, I'm here." And well, I don't wish that on anyone because, feeling that sense of impending doom and just constant fear, like fight or flight, is just not something that I would want anyone to go through. It's pretty scary at times, but it is definitely manageable. And um, throughout high school, I kind of learned kind of the basics of coping with those types of feelings and those waves of emotions. Because really, it was just kind of a come and go type of feeling. But as I got into college, that I had more on my plate, that's where it kind of intensified. Um, and I did go through a really rough patch a couple years ago with my anxiety. Um, because of everything that I had on my plate. And I didn't realize that until afterwards. And it was like those same symptoms that I felt, but times 10. So it was like 24/7, just pain, chest compressions, headaches, numbness on the tip of my fingers, like everything combined together, but it was just constant. And then add the insomnia to it. And, it was really, really rough that I just kind of had to stop everything and I had to put everything aside and be like, how can I get through this? Because it was something that I've never ever went through in my life. And it felt like I had something else going on in health wise, but I would get checked and everything. And my doctors, the professionals would say, your vitals are normal. It's just stuff in here that you have to control and kind of simmer down. And it took me a while to get to that point, but I feel like I had to go through that then so that it could get me to where I am now because I cannot imagine myself going through that era of my life now that I'm in a different country on the other side of the world. I feel like that would be just way worse.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. But that was gonna be my. I was gonna ask you if you experienced this while you were still living close to family, which, as difficult as it is, like that's a little bit better because at least you have a support system instead of just being in no man's land and dealing with the most difficult crises of your life, basically. But what has helped you? What has helped you cope a little better? And what were some of the first strategies that you implemented to start to manage your anxiety a little bit better?
Oh gosh, give myself some breaks, you know. I realized during that time that I was just like go to school, go to work, hang out with friends, go to sleep the next day, you know, do this different cycle. And I realized that I didn't have enough time for myself to do the things that I wanted to do to kind of decompress a little bit, and also take off the pressures of everything because I also wasn't prioritizing what I felt about certain situations or me. So just giving myself a break, kind of being in my little bubble for just a second to kind of recharge, to take on the world again. It really helps me. And also being able to say no to things that I'm not comfortable with. I always had people pleasing tendencies. I still do, I'm working through that, but definitely a little bit better now than then. That was also something that caused a lot of anxiety. And so now, whenever I feel like something isn't right, I say, oh, well, I don't really want to do that, but I want to do this. It's just implementing healthier habits as well, just things that are healthier for my mind and that don't make me feel like on edge while I'm doing them.
Definitely. And now that you are not only are you in school, you're in fashion school, so that's a little bit more demanding, right? And you have to get like really creative, and then you also have to like do things actually with your hands that take a lot of time and energy and precision. So how do you like manage that? And what skills from your past experiences do you kind of implement so that that doesn't become overwhelming and it doesn't stop being fun because it's what you love, right?
Definitely. Just try my best to manage my time as best as possible, stay focused, because it's not something that I could really do on the go. It's something that I have to kind of make a space for it, kind of physically lay out and just do it. And it is kind of time consuming because there's a lot that goes throughout that process. And then, I mean, the professors always have the best intention in mind, but the critiques are sometimes hard, so it also tends to make you overthink sometimes. But in the end, I mean, what matters is that you put in the work for it and you stay focused and do what it is that you know that you need to do.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And that's interesting that you said like the critiques are a little they get to you a little bit, right? Even though
Yeah.
I know they're trying to be constructive, but and it's in almost every creative field I feel like, but in fashion, just from what I know from like shows and reality shows, it can get a little uh it can get
Yeah.
a little harsh. Yeah.
Sometimes it's definitely like that. Like they will be so blunt with you, telling you, well, this looks really bad, but you could do this next time. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. No, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. It's what's like the your favorite part or like your highlight of like the whole designing process?
Oh, I always love answering this question. Well, the planning it is pretty lengthy. It does get stressful at times because you're trying to kind of organize everything, saying like, oh, but what if we put this color together? What if we put that together? Which kind of comes in with the problem solving. I love that part of it, but really my favorite part, I think, is actually creating it. So when it comes time for me to sit down and sew the pieces together, it's really fun. When it comes to me assembling whatever it is that I need to do, And towards the end too, when I'm making the presentation to make it look presentable, because that always counts in the grading scale. I always look, I take a step back and I look and I go, wow, that was actually pretty fun. Stressful, but fun, and I would like to do that again. So it's always really rewarding in the end.
That sounds so exciting. And yeah, when you're creative, I guess bringing your plans into vision can be exciting. And in your case, it's becoming a physical structure that you can feel and you can put on yourself or others can put on their body. So it's just a beautiful, really beautiful art. And yeah, I love fashion. So enjoying the conversation.
I
What's
see. I love what's going on here with your earrings, with your top. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. I had to step my game up for this podcast episode. I love your jacket too and your whole outfit. So,
Thank you.
oh. All right, let's roll it back a little bit. So, when you were finishing high school, you were class of 2020, probably the most difficult and PTSD inducing year for Gen Z collectively. So, what was that like? And with with your anxiety, did that even like make things a little bit worse? What was that time period for you like?
It was so weird. Because it was like an era that I was always like dreaming about, like the, prom and our end of the year trip and our graduation ceremony. And for that to all of a sudden be kind of just stripped away was really hard to comprehend. I feel like a lot of people could say this also if they graduated the same year, that it's something that we probably won't really get over because I mean, for me, it's kind of just a bit funny to think about the fact that a month before lockdown, I had bought my prom dress and now it's just sitting in my closet. But I always tell myself, maybe at some point I'll wear it, or maybe at some point I can make a rendition of it. So I always try to like look at the positive side, but there's always that dream of wanting to experience that. But either way, I'm grateful for my school because they actually managed to pull a ceremony for us. That's really all we wanted. And they did like the whole social distancing part of it. They made it very organized to the point where we could have that ceremony that we wanted for years, but also in a safe manner because of the circumstances. So that really was the highlight of this whole era, but then going immediately into college was weird too because um, the majority of my classes were online, except for the fashion classes. Since it's such a hands-on practice, I had to be there in person. So, you know, having to go to class, have all of our tables and all of our materials laid out, and everyone socially distanced with all our masks, I feel like it's funny to think back too because I didn't really see anyone's full face until like the middle of the semester because everyone just had their masks on and we would only see it when we had lunch. So it felt also very solitary because not everyone was in class. It was just really us and the other programs that needed to be in these labs doing their thing, doing, working on their final projects. So it was definitely weird, uh, but something that we adapted to, I guess, pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And just continuing a little bit about that, like when you were just starting out in university or college, did that make it harder to meet people and become a part of that college community? And how did you navigate that?
Making friends was it felt the same. Because, well, as for my fashion classes, we were such a small group of people and we were all starting out the same time. We just kind of created like a tight-knit community, and there's actually some people in the class that I still talk to that we still keep up with each other and we follow up on each other's lives. So it's been really nice. I even still talk to some of the friends that I've made in my reading math classes because of the group chats that we created to help each other out with homework or finals or whatever the case may be. It was pretty good. It didn't feel really that different. It just felt like, I guess everyone knew that we were all going through something very similar. So we just kind of, instantly created that community of let's help each other out. Let's do this, so that we could all pass together.
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely. It's you always find some sort of like support and strength in community. So it's exciting to hear about that. And that was also going to be one of my questions, like how you build community of creatives, especially with like such a niche, such as fashion. Um, but yeah, how has that been like also with like your school's community, but also like the larger industry and being a part of a community? Like how has that been for you? What has been some highlights of being part of that industry?
So a lot of people, everyone knows that the fashion industry is a pretty competitive field, and a lot of people think that everyone in this industry is just to themselves and trying to push the other down, but really it's not like that. It's a common misconception, and I feel like a lot of people, since we all want the same thing, we all want to be successful, we all want to push out our own art. We're always so supportive of each other, and if any of us needs any help, we could always rely on someone to help us get there. And there's been a lot of opportunities where I've had friends who've helped me with my art. I've helped my friends with their art. So it feels very nice that, in such a competitive field, because at some point it does get like that, and there will be people that will try to bring others down to push their own art. I'm glad to see that good side of the industry where we're all just open to guide each other and help each other out.
Incredible, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I think it does get a little bit of a bad rep, probably from the reality shows.
Yeah.
It's probably those reality shows in the 2000s that have created that misconception. But I was telling you earlier, I was at a fashion show a couple weeks ago, the Soul Shifters Fashion Gala here in Denver, and it was really transformative. And I just you can just feel so much love and appreciation and support just within that place, and the models and their families and the designers, and just so much love and respect within everyone there. So yeah, it's exciting to talk more about that and cover that. While we're still on the topic of other folks in fashion, right? What is your view and advice on like networking and getting yourself in rooms that you need to be in and talking to people that you need to talk to in order to kind of keep progressing in the creative industry and the fashion industry?
So for me, it's been a challenge that I think that's one of my biggest challenges, being in this industry because when I discovered that I had anxiety. I was also diagnosed with social anxiety because I tend to overthink everything that I say. I tend to look at someone and be like, well, I would love to get to know them, but what if this, what if that? And then that's what kind of holds me back from talking and possibly making a connection, with them. And in this industry, I have to do a lot of that because I mean, you never know who you end up being able to work with. You could, meet a photographer, someone in the publishing agency or a model, whatever the case may be. But I've always tried to kind of push myself to these networking opportunities so that I could kind of open myself up, and it has helped me open myself up. But um, it's definitely been a little difficult to kind of navigate.
Yeah, and that's great to hear that, right? Because I think for most people it's difficult, and it's not too difficult for the minority. But it's just so great to hear that because I feel like many people resonate with that. So now, like now, people know that okay, it's not just you who feels that way. Actually, a lot of us do. Um, and while we're still on this topic, like let's talk a little bit about like imposter syndrome. Do you ever do you ever feel like you have do you ever experience imposter syndrome? That's like a big thing across our generation. Just being so young and being in a different place and being surrounded by all these other um, reputable and talented people.
Oh, well, sometimes I do get a little intimidated. So I could say yes and no, because I mean I've been proud of the work that I put out, and I said, well, if this expert does not like what I put out, then that's fine. I'll move on to the next. But I feel like I'll definitely feel that once I start really pushing myself out there, kind of scaling up in the industry. Um, but yeah, it's pretty common. It's pretty common, and it tends to get to you sometimes. Even, when I applied to study abroad, I was like, this is crazy. This could this even happen to me? And once I shot my shot and I went through the whole process and I got accepted to the school, I was like, oh wow, it could happen to me. So I feel like having that experience really helps me not feel that type of imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. Yeah, definitely. And that's empowering to hear that. Let's talk a little bit about self care. So, what does your routine look like on weekdays and also on weekends? Like, what do you do to kind of reset and take care of yourself? Are there any routines that you incorporate into your life or any mental health activities that help you on a regular basis?
Well, aside from, sewing on my free time, kind of I sometimes like to sketch a little bit when I get some ideas. Aside from that, I find organizing my space very calming. So when I feel like I need to organize my space, I will do it. I will find something to organize. Also maintaining my space clean because, when it comes to finals, when it comes to those times where, I need to really finish all my projects and get them out there for the due date. Um, I my space is just a mess. I have everything everywhere. And during those times, it does get a little stressful because you're on such a short amount of time. So I feel like, maintaining that space as clean and as organized as possible really helps ease my mind during these, very critical times where you have to kind of like it's crunch time. You have to get everything out and ready, right? So I find that that helps me, and it being in Milan too. It's such a beautiful city, such a beautiful atmosphere that I probably won't have any plans that day, and I find myself, okay, what do I do today? I go out for a walk. I take the tram, I take the train, or I just walk. I look around. I like to take pictures of different scenery, so I take pictures. And now with spring coming, all the flowers are starting to bloom, so there's even more to see. So just kind of appreciating the environment around you and immersing yourself also in the culture as well is something that I feel like helps me kind of cope with all of that.
Incredible. And I love doing stuff like that too. I actually like doing a lot of stuff alone and just walking around and going wherever I want. It's really freeing experience. And I know you mentioned that a little bit before too when dealing with anxiety, just spending time with yourself and doing what you yourself want to do. So let's expand on that a little bit. Like just spend like a lot of people don't spend time alone together, and then when they do, they get to know themselves and they don't like themselves. So just talk a little bit about the value that you put on that and why it's important.
Well, I have to give credit to my mom for
Shout
this
out,
because
mom.
my mom, she has always been the type of person who kind of instilled a mentality of like, if that person is making your life impossible, if they're giving you a hard time, it's because they're jealous of you. And I was like, maybe you're right. So I've always grown with that self-confidence around me. And even with my dad too, he has a strong character and he says, well, you just have to focus on what you want to do, what you like to do, because nobody can change that. And so both my parents having these mentalities of like loving themselves and being confident and, being so passionate in what they're doing too, it really has helped me um, have that mentality always of, well, you know, um, some people may not like me or what I put out in the world with my arts or but it's fine. I'm doing my own thing. I am doing what I love and that's really the most important thing, really.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And yeah, like I feel like shout out to our parents for that, because I think that's something that's instilled in you like very early on, and it kind of changes your worldview because you're the main character, and it's your story, and you're the author, and you're the like main lead character or actress. So it's really cool. But yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
you touched a little bit about like staying organized and how you enjoy that. I'm finding that as an adult. It's definitely something I'm enjoying more and more. And whenever I feel like super unsettled, or like it's a Friday and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to do, just like cleaning up everything and making things visually pleasing has a tendency to just calm the anxiety and help you focus on what you need to do. Um, so with that tone, like tell us a little bit about like the discipline that it takes to do what you do, and also how do you get focused to get started on like whatever you need to do, whether it's like planning or designing or stitching or sewing, like what's your process like to get started, and tell us about the discipline that it takes to do what you do in this time consuming but creative field, and because you can't save things for the last minute.
Of course. I don't like that, but sometimes I have to admit it happens. Like I said, for me, it's like a learning curve. I'm still learning different ways of how to kind of navigate through that, find kind of the best way to have this process where I could say, okay, I have to do this, this, that, and the other, and I want to have it done by today, by this time. I'm still working on having that type of organized process, but when it doesn't happen the way that I plan it, I try not to put so much pressure on myself because then that's where the anxiety comes in. And then I say, well, the next day I have to do what I didn't do today and also what I planned for this day, which is it's a lot. So I say, well, at least I got this done today. I think I'm pretty satisfied that I got this and that and the other done today. So I always kind of mentally say, okay, today I want to do this, this, and that. And sometimes I write it down. I have to say, okay, well, I have to plan for this class. I have to sketch some ideas for that class. I have to clean around the apartment, sweep, or whatever the case may be, and just kind of start there. And then I know that at some point I will have more like a formulated schedule of like this time this and this time that, but I'm still working on that. So I can't
Incredible.
really give a lot of advice in that area, but um, if you're starting out, definitely start just very little and then grow up on that.
Amazing. That's great to hear that. And I feel like we're all in a similar stage. in our the quarter life where we're trying to figure out these things and be better at them, and just sharing tips with each other, because that's how it gets easier, by sharing these tools and techniques we have built with our community. Um, yeah, that sounds really great. And before we kind of move on from this, I want you to give like a piece of advice for people who are, one, thinking about leaving their home for to pursue their passion, and also people who might be looking into the arts and fashion as a field that they want to pursue, but they're a little unsure because, well, it's the arts, so not everyone's going to congratulate you at first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just say don't overthink it. If that's an idea that comes to your mind, just go for it because you never really know what comes out of it. I have people ask me, but what made you want to choose this? And I say, I don't know. The opportunity came to me and I said, well, maybe I should test this out. And it happened. And now I'm here. So I feel like, yeah, just go for it. And as for being in the arts, being in fashion, you have to really be passionate about it in the sense of like, you really have to love what you're doing. You have to be proud of your own work because you never know if an idea that you put on paper could really boost you into the right direction. So just really put yourself out there, take risks, don't limit yourself, and you never know which door is going to open for you.
Amazing. Love that. Love that. I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate that. And next, I want to hop on a little bit to your Colombian roots and how you've embraced that. And that's like a big part of your life. You have gone there to visit multiple times. Traveling is also big for you. So tell us a little bit about how you have utilized your culture and your background to empower you, and what that means to you in your life.
Well, I'm very grateful that, ever since I was little, I've gotten the opportunity to be able to go every year. And I talk about it so much that people get surprised when I say, no, I was born in Miami because they think I was born over there. But I feel like it's very important to kind of be immersed in your roots and embrace them as well because they're part of you. They're part of your blood. So I am very grateful that I got to experience that and um, Colombia just has such a beautiful and rich culture in many different areas that I feel like just now a lot of people that are not from there don't even know of it are starting to appreciate it. And I'm so grateful because there's so much beauty that Colombia has to show.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And that's so great that you got to connect and visit from an early age, and develop this um, love and connection with with your roots. That's absolutely awesome. Um, and I feel like your life is influenced by all these continents. It's incredible. And you're a traveler too. So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah, I like to travel too. It's really exciting to kind of be in a new place, and it's such a unique experience too, because I feel like 100 years ago it wouldn't have been like this easily possible. So it's such a luxury and a privilege that we get to experience. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your travel adventures. How's that been for you?
So traveling, I haven't done much for many different reasons. I feel like now that I'm here, I have the like a more easy chance to be able to get to know different countries because they're also together here in Europe. So any traveling opportunity that I got, it was to go to Colombia. But it's been nice. I've always been like a history nerd. I've always loved to learn about different cultures, different types of people and leaders and backgrounds. Um, you will always find me at museums, just kind of reading the notes, there was at some point where I was little and I went to St. Augustine and I just was I had a notebook where I'd write down notes of like, oh, interesting fact, you know. So I love to do that. And I don't know, I feel like that's just there's many different things that are so cool about traveling, but for me it's that it's just kind of getting to know the history, like why is this the way that it is? Why is that the way that it is? How did this come to be? Just knowing more about the background is really cool. And of course the food, of course the people, the environment, seeing different types of areas is so cool.
Absolutely. And it's so healing as well because you get to disconnect from the day to day, from the routine, from the rat race, and you get to experience this completely different way of life. And I feel like your brain is just filled with possibilities of what could be. And you need that as a human being every now and then. So that's really, really
Of
cool to
course.
hear. All right. Can you tell me a little bit about what's coming up for you in the next few months? What are you up to? What are you working on?
So I currently have a Instagram page, kind of like my portfolio, as you could say, called garoriscadesign.s. I post basically all about my journey studying abroad. I post a couple projects that I've been working on. I just started my second semester here in Milan, so there won't be so much activity, but we do have design week coming up, so I'll probably be immersing myself in the exhibitions that they have 2 weeks back. So you'll see definitely a lot of those types of videos, and of course, every once in a while you'll see some of my projects up there. So just to keep you guys up to date with everything that I work on while I'm at school here.
That's incredible. And just to touch on that, I was on your Instagram and I saw a lot of like the planning that goes into your work. And I really wanted to ask you like how you begin the process because I saw like you have a bunch of mood boards, screens with inspirations. Like what is that first process for you like as a creative? Like how do you draw your inspiration? And feel free to like use an example if that's so vague, but I just really wanted to ask you that.
Well, music. Oh, music is definitely my biggest inspiration for my designs. I have so many playlists on my Spotify. Like I have one of just a bunch of old music that my dad used to listen to that now I listen to on the daily. I even have one where my mom, like there's music that she listened to from Colombia that I listen to on the daily. And, my music that I listen to, which is like pop, R&B, even chill house music. So from those, there's always going to be, those little favorite songs. And those favorite songs I every time I listen to them, I kind of immerse myself in my own world. If I were to, be in this world of a song, what would it look like? And sometimes it can look like a sunset with a girl with this beautiful long dress. Sometimes it could look like this dark night with this girl in like this space outfit or this tropical outfit. Like it depends on the mood and the vibe of the song, but it's always starts from that, and that's where my ideas kind of spring out, and then putting them on paper. And at school, of course, they ask you to create mood boards and to create, to do research about different elements that you would want to add into your designs, whether it be the type of fabric, the type of material, embellishment, where this all comes from, the historical aspects, right? So either way, like I love to create mood boards because before I was into fashion, I would cut out pictures from magazines of people, places, things that I like and just put them together. And I remember I actually have this still in my house in Miami. I have like these four letter size papers where I just pasted a bunch of pictures together, make this big collage of things that I liked at the time, and I even dated it and everything. I would be like Carolina, date 2012, age 10, and I took those skills and I apply them to my mood boards now. And that's kind of what helps me also kind of move into the process because from those mood boards and of course those songs that I listen to, I get the colors, I get the tone, the mood, and of course the background research, of course, like I mentioned earlier. So all of those elements have helped me have like a stable foundation in these projects that I create, whether it be at school or whether it be personal. It has always helped me in my creative journey.
Incredible. Yes, amazing. I did want you to touch on that a little bit because with the new year passing a few months ago, I feel like it's been an era of like vision boards and quarterly boards or monthly boards that, people have been utilizing to just visualize their life and make it better. And I like that concept a little bit. So I thought you would be just the right person to speak on that a little. But before we wrap up, I do want to get a little bit into like how you have utilized music as something to strengthen you, to empower you. And you're a bit of a collector like myself. So I did want to touch on that before we wrap up here.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to know? I love to talk
um,
about it.
Yeah, so like how has it strengthened you? What are your some of your like favorite playlists that you draw inspiration from or favorite artists that you draw inspiration from?
So I actually get uh this whole collecting type of gene from my dad. He has boxes full of just records. And some of them he gave to me because they're now my current favorite artists. So he had a lot of albums from Michael Jackson, Sade, even Tears for Fears. So those I have, and even David Bowie. He's such a big David Bowie fan. So had seeing like the original ones that they sold at the time of those releases is so cool, and seeing all of that inspired me to collect my own. So I'm like, well, why don't I have my own favorites? And some of the favorites that I have from music now is um, I have Victoria Monet's album, Jaguar 2. I have Ariana Grande's Positions album, which is my favorite of hers. One of my all-time favorite albums too is called Playing with the Changes by Rochelle Jordan. Very house, very R&B inspired. So those I have in my room back in Miami, and CDs I have a lot as well, with even with like little autographs. So I even have Camila Cabello, like love her music. I have some of my dad's CDs from David Bowie as well. I have almost all of Ariana's discography. I'm missing actually, I think Thank You Next and My Everything, but in general, I have all of her discography. So, seeing that makes me happy, and it also like, it calms me too.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we touched on this because you're quite the collector and like honestly that's incredible to hear that. I feel like I got my musical gene from my dad too. He was a collector and a DJ. Um but I didn't really discover my love for music until I was like a teenager, which was really hard. I was like 16 and before that like I would be like they're like, "Do you know this song?" I'm like, "Sure, I know that song." Not really. And I used to just like listen to billboards, so I would have something to talk about with my friends. But it really hit when I was like 16. And then since then, I'm like, all right, great. Finally, I get to join this group of incredible, incredible things and really like feel music the way that other people feel music. I was so grateful for that. Um,
Yeah,
so
but our
it's,
music like taste evolves over time. So
oh,
when I
yeah.
was younger, I would listen to just radio music, and now it's just artists that I've discovered. So
Yeah.
I totally understand you.
Yeah, exactly. Radio music, because like Billboard would play or I'll be like, "Can you get me like the Billboard Top 100 for the week? I just need something to chat about." And then now I'm like discovering new artists. I'm like telling people which concerts to go to. It's a whole shift. And just a quick question: do you ever tell people like which designs were inspired by which music or which songs and artists? Does that ever come up, or is that your little secret?
Well, if they ask, I will say it, but that conversation really doesn't come up.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep it to myself, but if it comes up, it comes up.
Amazing. Well, I feel like we had such an incredible conversation today and something that people are going to really value and enjoy. So, yeah, if you have any last words for all of your audience here before we wrap up, definitely go ahead and share that.
No, I'm just very grateful for this conversation, and I want to thank you guys for having me on. This has been incredible. It's the first time I do something like this also, and speaking on topics that I'm so passionate about, like mental health, fashion, music is really cool. It's really, fulfilling
Yeah.
too. Makes me so happy.
Absolutely. And we are so, so grateful that you accepted our invite and that you're meeting us kind of late where you are because you're in Milan right now. It's still sunshine and early here, but thank you for like meeting us after a long day. And yeah, honestly, I'm so honored to do this. I'm so excited to talk about, fashion and especially with someone who is actually in the Fashion Central and doing the work, and who is also, um, part of our generation and can share some of really our shared experiences. So I'm so happy that you accepted our invite and shared a little bit of your journey with us. And maybe in a year or two, we can do a part two where I'm sure you're going to be making some big moves. So yeah,
Definitely, I would love to. Call me
amazing.
back for
I
that.
will. I will. I'm going to be keeping in touch with you and keeping up with all your website and Instagram. But yeah, say your Instagram for folks so they can connect with you after this podcast.
So my Instagram is caroriscadesign.s. So it's basically an abbreviation of my full name. And you could really just keep up to date with anything that I'm working on and my lifestyle here in Milan.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And thank you, Carolina, for being here today and chatting with me.
Thank you so much.